golf course, some minor repairs.
I just have one, I'll second it, but I just have one question. $1,100 for mailbox?
Mr. Person, would you like to answer that question?
If the game box is 12 boxes, we have 2 of them throughout town
And what are they for, what are they used for?
for mail.
Well, no,
For mail.
yeah, but is it just for the highway garage, or is it?
We have 2 of them through developments where they put these gang mailboxes, the postmaster comes in, puts the mail in there, and then the residents go open up their own little box.
It's our responsibility to pay for those mailboxes?
Well, we had a tree that we were working on, a tree that had hit the mailbox.
Oh, okay, all right, so we're replacing something that's damaged inadvertently, okay, all right.
Okay, also, if there's, I'm not sure, can you just see, or what I just doing? Is the sewer one in there, or is that over this?
Sewer ones, the pumps. It's already in there, the abstracts.
Because there's something on the agenda, number 7 is actually in there, there's a mistake that's supposed to be in the abstract for the Controlex. We had the quotes tonight, right?
Controlex is here.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's in this then, okay, I got it over here. So just so the board knows, the number 7 is actually in the abstracts, that's not supposed to be on the agenda, that's supposed to be in there. When we were set to put it in this meeting, we went into the wrong section, so I apologize for that.
Well, you got that.
It's work that was done, we have the 3 quotes, I don't know if they're all here or not, but the 3 quotes were added for work that was done, I don't know, some kind of meter or something broke down to the sewer plant. We thought it was emergency, but it wasn't, and the 3 quotes were handed in.
Like, well, you're asking
Every
if we're able to pay. So
Yeah, that's all, yes,
it's already
yeah.
been paid.
I just want to make sure when we get to number 7, you guys realize that we're already passing it here. Okay, so if you want to make that.
We have a motion in a second.
On the, yes, okay, I'm sorry. There's a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Order of bills, I'm
So
sorry.
make the motion, accept the bills as submitted with the understanding of the $7,000 as a context. Controlex, apologize.
And this is one of the main companies that we use in the sewer plant.
Second?
Okay, there's a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. I know, I forgot to do it. The minutes from the September 9th, oh, and then the September 9th workshop meeting as well, and the September 23rd meeting. I believe we all received them.
October 14th.
Did I miss it? Oh, I'm sorry. October 14th workshop and regular meeting as well, October 14th.
I'll make the motion. Second motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to accept the minutes, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Supervisor's report, we had one meeting, so I'm just going to announce and thank our Recreation Department and our Parks Department, Highway Department, all of our volunteers who did such a great job at our Halloween Spooktacular that was held on Saturday. I see Karen in the back. But great congratulations to her and her staff. They do an unbelievable job every year. Every year it gets better. This year we had 2, I don't want to call it here. What is it? Hey guys, thank you. I'm thinking of the Santa Claus one, but I didn't want to call it here. Our Parks Department, DJ Rob LeBron, Camp Venture. We had 16 people who volunteered in Camp Venture that jumped out and scared everyone on the rides. North Rockland art students who painted the doors of Kirkbride, our explorers, our Stony Point police. Our ShopRite donations came from ShopRite, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, 7-Eleven, TD Bank, Stop and Shop of Haverstraw, Stop and Shop of Pomona, McDonald's, Wendy's, Walgreens, Philip and Millman. Each one of them, all of these donations come at the hard work that our Recreation Department does. They go out and beg for things, and I personally want to thank them, and on behalf of the taxpayers of Stony Point, we thank you as well. So great job up there. I also wanted to mention just one other thing. Usually we close meetings in honor of someone who's passed away. Today, we're going to be closing this meeting on a celebratory reason because we had yesterday, Dorothy Holly celebrated her 100th birthday in Stony Point. She lives here. So we're going to be closing this meeting in honor of her birthday yesterday. So that's exciting. Congratulations and happy birthday to Dorothy. Okay. And that is my whole report. So we'll get right on. Police Department report, Chief. That was last month. And last week, golf course report. I see Mr. Fusco's here, but I don't think he's here for a report. Are you, Dave? No. Department reports, correspondence. Is there correspondence? No correspondence? Okay. We have 2 public hearings tonight. We will start it off with the sign law. Before we open that, I will ask our planner, Max, to come up and just say a few words on what this board has to do before we open the public hearing.
Good evening. I have provided to the board a short environmental assessment form. This short environmental assessment form is intended to assess the potential impacts associated with the resolution that is going to be open for a public hearing tonight. My understanding of the project is that these are signs that would be located either on private property or in the right of way. They are less than 20 by 10 feet. They're consistent with the type of signs that we're seeing throughout the region that provide information out on an electronic device, and that the rest of the monument sign will be constructed of stone or natural materials and consistent with the architecture of the town. That being said, these are signs that will be located in limited locations throughout the town and have very small footprints. I had provided to the board a short environmental assessment form, essentially indicating that no potential adverse impacts are likely to occur. If you concur with that, the next step would be to adopt this Part 2 and a negative declaration and move on with the public hearing. That has to be done before you open the public hearing, and I would also reference, or I would also ask Brian to just follow up with the details of the resolution as prepared.
Okay, Max, I have a question. You just come to say that again. I have written that adopt the Part 2 and the negative deck before we open the public hearing, correct?
Yeah, or at the least before you close it.
We'll do it before.
If you're planning on closing it tonight, then.
We have no intention of closing tonight. It will remain open.
Okay, very good.
Can I just ask a question? Well, we're making a change here. Where we're discussing relates to signage. It doesn't relate to any company, individual sign. We're just talking about signage, the type of signage.
No, this is something that Brian and I had a discussion about. It's really a zoning matter, if anything. The idea here initially that we discussed is a community subject to its own zoning. And we felt that it's right for the law to reflect the actions that this town board wants to take with regard to the signs, and therefore we ought to amend the zoning law, put a law on the books to allow this and give the public an opportunity to provide input. But ultimately, this is an amendment to the zoning. It's not a contract to enter into an agreement with any.
But it's a generic. It's
Yes.
a generic sign. It's not any company sign.
That's
it's
correct.
Not a name sign, not any brand sign.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, but this resolution you're talking about is to allow the signage before we hear the input from any sign company?
No. This what I'm asking you to do tonight is just a negative declaration that says, were you to adopt the law, it wouldn't result in significant adverse environmental impacts. You'll then open up a public hearing to get input from the public, and then based on that, you'll decide yes or no on the law. If you decide during the public hearing that there are the potential for significant adverse impacts, you can always rescind your resolution or your determination that there's no environmental impact, but that's not likely to occur.
Seems like you're putting this.
I think so too.
It is something that is confusing, and it's something that was established by the courts in challenges on the seeker law, that a complete application must either contain a negative declaration or an EIS has to be prepared before it's a complete application. So the public has the right to know what the environmental impacts are to the negative declaration. That's why you have to do it before the public hearing. It is counterintuitive when you're talking about environmental impacts. I will say that absolutely and I agree with you, but that's the decision that I believe the second department of the Appellate Division handed down to us.
Any other question for Max? No? Sure.
Thank you, Supervisor, members of the board. As Max touched on, this proposed local law, right now we're at really stage one. This is opening up for discussion in the public hearing to get input, not only from the public, but from yourselves as board members. There are a couple of things in this law that still remain to be determined, including what do you want to allow as a maximum size if you were to allow a sign like this, and secondly, how many do you want? Do you want to allow 1, 2? Those are a couple of things that still need to be decided, and that's the purpose. There is no intent by the board, as you know, to close the public hearing or approve this local law, nor could you at this point, because those issues I just raised are material to the law, and you need to have that law in hand for a certain amount of time before you can approve it. So the plan tonight would be to open the public hearing to obtain any input, and then the public hearing would have to be continued. As Max had said, if there were issues raised that changed your minds, or you think there would be some significant environmental impact, you can rescind the negative declaration and deal with that as it arises. So what you have in terms of the local law is the initial draft version. Mr. White, to address your question, whether or not an idea may come from a specific company, there are competitive bidding requirements or proposal requirements whenever a municipality spends its money. So in this case, what would happen is if you went forward and adopted a gateway sign law, after the adoption of the law, you would ultimately issue, depending on the money involved, typically a request for proposals for any sign companies to submit their proposals to the town, because one proposal may say, we'll put the signs on your town property for free, or maybe make a deal with a private property owner. Another one might say, we'll share revenue with the town, or we'll pay for space on town property to lease it, to have a sign placed there. There are a lot of options, and that's further down the road, but at this point, you can't consider that unless and until this law is adopted in some form, and then once we have it and the signs are allowed, we would put it out there. And just one last note, it is structured, and we did have discussions about whether the town could really limit this to town property, and that wouldn't be proper either. There could be a private property owner with a key piece of real estate that might wish to lease their portion of the property for this purpose to allow one of these signs. However, if you decide there can only be 2 of them, once they're up wherever they may be, that would be the end of the gateway signs that fit into this category. Initially, we did try to look at whether the town had to go through amending the zoning ordinance, because there are provisions of law that say a town is not subject to its own zoning, but that's only for certain types of activities, and in our review, we felt that this activity for a commercial sign, even though it had incidental governmental uses by the town, was not one of those items that could be exempted from the town complying with its own zoning code. So that's really the purpose for this amendment. So at this point, you can open the public hearing and hear the public.
First.
Adopt the short form and the negative declaration.
Okay, so I'll make a motion, I guess we should do it in, I'll do it in one motion. Adopt
One resolution.
part 2 and declare a negative. Form of motion.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor?
No.
Okay, 4-1. And at this time, we'll open the public hearing. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing. Let me just get a motion. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, first, let's see, Frank Collier.
Frank Collier, 10 Knapp Road, Stony Action Committee for the Environment. Well, now that the horse has left the barn, we can talk about the law, or we can talk about the law after that. About 2 years ago, there was quite a contentious argument up here about passing a sign law, which was rather restrictive. In fact, it was so restrictive that our group actually contacted an attorney about this. And the attorney's advice at the time was, well, wait and see what they did. Well, in about 2 years, haven't done anything, really. There's signs all over everywhere. There's been no enforcement of it whatsoever. Now we're having this sign, which is going to be electric signs. We had passed one. We had not passed them on the planning board for CDS because we thought it would be distracting to drivers. But now you seem to be in favor of having distraction for drivers. We teach our kids, don't text and drive, but now you're doing the same thing because it's going to be a public convenience and a great saving and a public utility. We need this, don't we? We could have a reverse phone call thing if it came down to that kind of need for getting information out to the public. What came at the last town board meeting was a proposal that was actually just that, a proposal was made into what appeared to be, to me, it was going to be town code. And we were asking for fill in the blanks and all kinds of language, should, may, might, those kind of things, that you would never put in a contract because you don't know. I think that's a foolish thing to do. I would just like to say, I think that there's probably more things to go, more reasons to pass this law than there are things that you've talked about so far. Maybe it's a group or something like that that has some irons in the fire to have this thing done. I would ask you to consider this a lot more carefully than what's going on now, because I feel this is a big mistake in every possible way. If you're against it, vote against it. It's perfectly okay. A lot of people here will support you on that. I thank you very much for your time.